They've been to all of those. And you talk to them, and they look you in the face and they tell you that colonialism is past and gone. We are 60 years old. Why do you blame the colonialists? I feel pity for such educated fools, Mr. President, if you'll excuse my language. Because they're certainly educated, but they don't know their history, and they are foolish in the extreme. You know why? Because colonialism continues up till today. It has not stopped. What explains our poverty? What explains our underdevelopment? Today, look around all of Africa. Look at our railway lines. Just look at our railway lines. And it tells the story. All of our railway lines start. But on this occasion, the president picked my call. And I said, well, I'm doing a book on reparations, and given the fact that you are the AU champion on reparations, would you kindly write the foreword? And his answer was simple. He said, bring the book. Just that, bring the book. So I took the book to the president, and I was wondering, when will he have time to read 130 pages? Like me, and 130 pages, and you expect the president to find time to read it. 2 weeks later, I get a call from Dr. Callistus Mahama, and he says, the foreword is ready. I was in a hurry to get the foreword. I couldn't wait. And when I got the foreword and read it, and it's in the book, so all of you will have the opportunity of reading the foreword. What brilliance, what depth of knowledge and understanding of the issue. When I read the foreword by His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, I felt so proud to be a Ghanaian, and so proud to have him as my president. And you will read it for yourself. The scholarship was extraordinary.
You can do it better than you're doing. Master. Let's welcome Kwesi Pratt Jr.
Comrade Pratt Opoku, the chairperson for this evening's function, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, and comrade, distinguished all of you. Where do we start? Perhaps it is important to start from the very beginning. Early this year, I was in the offices of Pan-African Television, and I had a visitor. That visitor certainly is not Ghanaian. And we had a conversation about reparations. And at the end of the conversation, this visitor said, why don't you write your views down? And I said, me to write about reparations? I don't know anything about reparations. And he said, no, you can do it. From this conversation, I'm sure that you can write about reparations. So I set out to write an essay on reparations, not a book. And I called my comrade Abdul Haq Ibrahim, who normally does the research, and I said, dig up the facts, dig up the figures, and so on, the book. And I thank you very much, Mr. President. Indeed, 2 weeks after the Malabo conference, I came to Accra, and then we started checking our social media platforms, my X page, and all of that. And in 2 weeks, we had 30,000 requests for the book. And I simply could not believe it. Recently, I was invited to Johannesburg in South Africa to attend a meeting of experts, and I mean experts. Everybody in the room had a title except me. There were representatives of the Pan-African Lawyers Union. There were professors in law and so on who were preparing a case actually for the African Court of Human Rights and Justice, or Justice and Human Rights, whatever. And they brought me in there because they thought that I had written this book and therefore I was an expert. How easy to be an expert in this world. But I was there and I put on the pretensions of an expert. And after 2 days, we managed to prepare the case for the African Court. It was explained to me that the reason why I was there was that the issue of reparation is not just about the law, but it's also about history, it's about our politics, and it's about the intervention of social forces in Africa. And the lawyers thought that my views would be important in that direction. I hope they found my views useful. Now, having said that, and when the president is around, you don't talk for too long, so I'm about to cut what I'm about to say. I just like to say simply that reparation is not about monetary compensation for the wrongs done to us. Because no amount of money can pay for the evil deeds of the capitalist states and their allies. No amount of money can pay for it. You see, comrades, there was a beautiful African woman. I'm not so sure what language I should use around here. But a very beautiful African woman with a very impressive backside. When the colonialists came and saw this woman, they decided that this woman should be put on exhibition. So they captured her, they took her to Europe. What amount of money can pay for this? A couple of days ago, I circulated some material on WhatsApp to my friends about another woman from Elmina, Edna, in Ghana, in the central region of Ghana, who had some skin problem. And she decided to apply African herbs and ointments. She was arrested by the colonialists, sent to Europe for trial for sorcery. Now, those of you who are a bit older will remember that in Accra, not too long ago, the Rich Hospital, which is now the Greater Accra Hospital, was a whites-only hospital. Only whites. Blacks were not allowed in the Rich Hospital. You understand? I've also come upon material which tells the story of why the slavers, the slave masters and their agents and so on, thought that the best leather bag you could use was one made with black skin. Black human skin. They used it to make leather. The same way you use the hide of cows and so on to make leather. What compensation can pay for this? And then many more. But you see, somehow, all of us, or many of us, have become victims of colonialism without even recognizing that we are victims. We think it's enlightenment because we don't know the history. Part of the history is that the Pope of the Catholic Church in 1452 issued what was then known as the Papal Bull, which was a law. The Pope made laws and authorized King Alfonso of Portugal to come to our part of the world and civilize us. And civilize us meant then convert us to Christianity. And that those who refuse to be converted should be killed. Their property should be seized, and their wives should be seized. This was the Pope. So we cannot be discussing reparation, we cannot be discussing our history and so on, without reference to the papal bull, which was the legal document which declared our lands as vacant lands. We were not humans. The same way you go to look for a plot of land somewhere in Ashanti, and there are squirrels on the land, there are antelopes on the land and so on, but it is vacant land. Our lands were vacant because we were not considered human enough. And then it continued. But you see, one of the things that pains me most is that today when you talk to some of our people, and sometimes they are very highly educated, they have been to Harvard, they've been to Oxford, they've been to all of those, and you talk to them, and they look you in the face and they tell you that colonialism is past and gone. We are 60 years old. Why do you blame the colonialists? I feel pity for such educated fools, Mr. President, if you'll excuse my language. Because they're certainly educated, but they don't know their history, and they are foolish in the extreme. You know why? Because colonialism continues up till today. It has not stopped. What explains our poverty? What explains our underdevelopment? Today, look around all of Africa. Look at our railway lines. Just look at our railway lines. And it tells the story. All of our railway lines start when you have your gold, diamond, magazine, timber, and so on. Where do they end up? All of them end up in the ports. And if that system does not change, colonialism has not come to an end. Today, all over Africa, unfortunately, including the Republic of Ghana, today, we are hosting U.S. military facilities, U.S. forward operating base for the U.S. Army. What is wrong with us? This must change if we are to get real meaning to our industry. We go to French-speaking Africa. French-speaking, while we are here, immersed in poverty, immersed in these horrible conditions, is simply the fact that we are taking our prescriptions from the people who poison us. There's poison in our system. We want to get rid of the poison, but we go to the people who poisoned us in the first place, give us prescriptions. So you go and they tell you that if you are to get out of poverty and underdevelopment, you have to follow the example of Britain. You have to follow the example of Germany and so on. My brothers and sisters, I stand here and I tell you that if you follow those examples, it will lead you to your doom, and there's no salvation at the end of the road. But why do I say this? Ask yourself how those countries came to be what they are today. All of them, without exception, came to be what they are today because they captured our forebears and made them work for them as beasts of labor, beasts of burden, for hundreds of years without pay. The accumulation which led to the development of the capitalist states came from classical colonialism. That accumulation came from today's neocolonialism. So if you are to the world, we as Ghanaians today can also go and capture their people as slaves to work for us for hundreds of years without pay. It doesn't make sense. Tell me which country in the world we can also go and colonize. Tell me which country in the world will come and put their foreign reserves in the Bank of Ghana and take loans from us, and then we charge them interest on their own money. It is not possible. The path of capitalist development is not a path which is available to us. And it's important for us to realize that the only path to development available to us is the path of collective self-reliance guided by the principles of socialism as Kwame Nkrumah taught us. There is no alternative to that. As you all know, and this is not new, this is not science, this is not new, Einstein told us something. Einstein against us. Look, for a long, long time, the United Nations did not have more than 50 members. Why? Because at the time they were constructing the United Nations, we were colonies. And colonies were not members of the UN. So they built a United Nations Security Council. And on that United Nations Security Council, 1.4 billion people of this world are not represented. They have no say. They constructed the IMF and the World Bank. We were not there. We were not at the table. So the IMF and the World Bank was constructed to protect the interest of the slave runners and so on. It is time to reset the world, to reorganize the United Nations, to reorganize the World Trade Organization, and to reorganize and rebuild all these institutions. Because without that, they will never be free.
You can do it better than you're doing. Master.